Do the ends justify the means? This question has been asked by most major dark fantasy franchises over the past 20 years, and it is this question alone that drives my own personal fascination with the genre. Outside of demons, magic, and the clashing of archaic weapons, there lies the classic Machiavellian dilemma. Can wrong make right? And does it cease to have ever been wrong once righted? Today, we'll be exploring these questions as well as some other wildly philosophical shit that I really hadn't anticipated getting into in this video in the world of Diablo and its eternal conflict between the high heavens and burning hells as we ask the question, who are the good guys? Hello and welcome to 10 Points of Slashing. My name is SJ, and if you're here, I would guess one of two things is true about you. One, you already have your own strong idea of who the good guy is in Diablo, or two, you're thinking there is no good guy. It's dark fantasy, that's a given for the genre. And to that second point, I'll say this, I absolutely agree. I think that's one of the things that makes dark fantasy so compelling. But I do also have my own relatively strong opinion as far as who the good guy is. So today we'll be exploring the ins and outs of the eternal conflict, the war between angels and demons that is as old as reality itself in the world of Diablo. We're gonna put all of the facts down on the table first before getting to opinions and conjecture, and at the end of the video we will be answering the question, who are the good guys? We'll start by giving a brief overview of the eternal conflict by talking a little bit about the forces that created the universe itself in Diablo so that we can understand what kicked the entire war off before jumping into analyzing each of the factions represented in this war. The angels of the high heavens and their governing body, the Angiris Council, and the demons of the burning hells and their most powerful few, the great evils. There is some incredibly nuanced storytelling in each of these groups that I'm super excited to talk about. We'll also be discussing Sanctuary and the human race itself. Ultimately, my opinion boils down to the impact that the eternal conflict has on us, humanity, so it's going to be important that we get our 2 cents into this debate as well. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for checking this video out, and let's jump right in to the eternal conflict. In the time before time, in the beginning, there was one, Anu, the first being in all of creation. Anu was the embodiment of all things, both good and evil. In an effort to purge itself of darkness and achieve absolute purity, Anu severed all of the evil from within itself and cast it away. This evil became the second being, Tathamet, the seven-headed dragon. Anu and Tathamet then battled for a near eternity. Untold eons of war passed between the raw force of good and the raw force of evil before finally each destroyed the other in a furious explosion that is said to have created the universe itself at that point. From the carcasses of each of them came the high heavens and the burning hells. Angels were born from the vibrating resonance of Anu's spine, the crystal arch, and demons rose up from Tathamet's dead and rotting flesh. Archangels and demon lords rose to power to control the armies of the high heavens and burning hells, and the ancient war between Anu and Tathamet continued. Good and evil clashed in a fight that has lasted for countless millennia. And what looked like a simple and brutal war of attrition in reality had darker motivations. Both sides were vying for control of the World Stone, the Eye of Anu and the Heart of Creation, possessed of an incredible, absolute power capable of altering reality itself. After being corrupted by the war between angels and demons, changing hands countless times, and even disappearing altogether at one point in time, the World Stone was eventually destroyed by the high heavens in an attempt to deny it to the burning hells. This one event that has shifted reality itself forever is a perfect picture of the drastic lengths that both sides are willing to go to in order to achieve victory. No angel or demon ever truly knew why they were fighting, simply that they must fight. To the high heavens and the burning hells, this is a war of necessity, a war that must be fought because it must be fought. The angels representing order and light, and the demons representing chaos and shadow were naturally and intrinsically opposed to one another, and therefore only one could be present at a time. So the enemy must be annihilated at any and all cost. These are the events and the beliefs that began and perpetuate the eternal conflict. So let's dive in and take a closer look at each of these factions, starting with the High Heavens. Most of the realm of the angels is concentrated within the Silver City, which is centered around the Crystal Arch, the spine of the dead god Anu. The city itself is composed of 5 major domains, each representing one of the 5 virtues of Anu: the Halls of Valor, the Pools of Wisdom, the Library of Fate, the Gardens of Hope, and the Courts of Justice. The area outside the Silver City and these 5 domains is an incomprehensible amalgamation of light and sound, the essence that angels themselves are composed of. Ruling over the high heavens and its heavenly host is the Angiris Council, composed of 5 archangels. Angels that, when born from the Crystal Arch's resonance, are the closest energetic resemblance to one of those 5 virtues of Anu mentioned previously: valor, wisdom, fate, hope, and justice. And I'd like to pull away from the lore for a moment here and talk a little bit about these virtues. Valor, courage in the face of danger, embodied by the Archangel Imperius, the current effective ruler of the Angiris Council. This is a virtue that I think is pretty self-explanatory. Courage in the face of real and present danger, as opposed to recklessness or something more rash and self-serving, is what I feel is a relatively good quality. Of course, Imperius shows us the negative to being courageous, but when we're just looking at the virtue objectively, I'd say this is honestly a pretty neutral virtue as far as virtues go. Courage can absolutely be fueled by the desire to do good, but it could also be fueled by the desire to do evil, or, as mentioned before, it can be entirely self-serving. Wisdom, the quality of being able to make sound judgment based on information that one has, as opposed to emotion that one is feeling that may be fleeting or temporary, where information is permanent. This virtue is embodied by the Archangel Malthael, who, fascinatingly, willingly surrendered his position as the ruler of the Angiris Council and fell from the high heavens to become the Angel of Death, somewhere between good and evil, and launched a campaign against humanity in an attempt to end the eternal conflict by ending all life touched by demonic corruption, which includes demons as well as humanity itself. The fascinating part of this is the angel that is the literal spiritual manifestation of making sound judgment made this judgment after eons of war poisoned his mind. He is also the only angel on the Angiris Council to have refused to pass judgment on humanity in a vote that would decide the survival of the human race as a whole, but we'll get to that later. Fate, the virtue that I find to be almost counterintuitive to what good is. Embodied by the Archangel Ethereal, fate is less of a virtue and more of an ethereal concept. That all events are predetermined and have a set path that is beyond control. Fate negates the concept of choice and free will and tells us that there's nothing that we can do to influence the way things happen. That these things will happen the way they're supposed to, regardless of any interference. This virtue is what I'd consider to be the most representative of the high heavens' affinity for order and strong governance. Fate is absolute order in all things, but something interesting about Ethereal, the archangel that embodies this virtue, is that although he is able to comprehend fate and time and essentially see the future, albeit in a limited way, he cannot comprehend the fate of humanity. We are considered to be outside of the natural order of creation due to the circumstances of our creation, which we'll also talk about later. Hope, the eternal light that illuminates all darkness, embodied by the Archangel Oriel, the most beloved of all angel kind. And I would argue that hope is the only virtue of the 5 that I would consider to be pure in nature, a true force for good, the incorruptible fulcrum on which all of the heavenly host rests. Lastly, justice. And this is what I think is the most interesting of the 5. Justice, in the most general sense, is the idea that people should get what they deserve, that good should be rewarded with good, and bad should be punished with bad. It's the idea that reward and punishment should be fair in all things, But what I find to be insanely interesting here is that of the 5 virtues, justice is the only one that is completely and entirely subjective. Justice is where morality and ethics start coming into the picture, concepts that none of the other 4 virtues take into account in any way. What is right and wrong? These are questions that have to be answered first before the virtue of justice can even truly come up. And in a society of angels that is literally only capable of comprehending what is right, beings that, by their nature, literally do not understand wrong, how can justice ever truly be administered? Justice is embodied by the Archangel Teriel, whose story is equally as fascinating as the virtue that he represents. In the vote that I mentioned earlier, Teriel voted to save us and is the reason that humanity was allowed to survive. And among other legendary and unprecedented feats, Teriel is the only angel in history to forsake his immortality and become mortal, due to a disagreement with the Angiris Council and their unwillingness to support humanity in the struggle against the burning hells. Teriel later rejoins the council as the aspect of wisdom after the defeat of Malthael and swears that forevermore, angel kind will stand together with humanity. I find each of these 5 virtues to be incredibly interesting in their own ways, especially when you consider that these are the 5 virtues of Anu after having purged itself of all evil. There's only 2 of these virtues that I'd consider to be entirely good in nature, and one of those is entirely subjective and based on one's own perception of morality. At the end of the day, angels generally believe that the only way to govern reality is through order and discipline. However, through all of the heavenly host's endeavors to exert their will, their brand of order and discipline across reality, all they have achieved is the perpetuation of war. They have ensured chaos, destruction, terror, and hatred through their actions, which they have presented under the guise of good virtues. The angels legitimately believe that valor, wisdom, fate, hope, and justice guide their chaotic crusade of death against the burning hells because they are literally incapable of seeing otherwise. And with that said, let's move south to the burning hells and talk about the other side of this conflict. The burning hells themselves are a microcosm of what they represent: chaos and darkness. The realm itself is constantly shifting and changing, a dark and oppressive world that is eternally burning and is capable of poisoning the minds of any mortals that enter. The burning hells were born from the rotting carcass of Tathamet after its cataclysmic and fatal battle with Anu. It's said that demons erupted from the burning hells like maggots do from a corpse, which is apropos if you think of the realm itself as the literal corpse of Tathamet. The burning hells were originally composed of 7 major realms, each affiliated with and ruled over by one of the 7 great evils: the severed heads of Tathamet and the physical representation of the literal 7 greatest evils in all of creation: hatred, destruction, terror, sin, anguish, pain, and lies. And as the old saying goes, as above, so below. So let's take a look at each of the great evils and their domains in the same way that we did the high heavens. Mephisto, the firstborn of Tathamet and the lord of hatred. Mephisto prefers to do his part in the eternal conflict by operating from the shadows through manipulation and stoking the flame of hatred that he claims lies in all hearts. Mephisto is confident and patient, eternally so. Of the great evils, he absolutely seems to be the wisest of them and finds joy in the constant, hateful scheming and warring of angels, demons, and humans alike. Baal, the second-born and Lord of Destruction, whose actions lead directly to the destruction of the World Stone, which is, to date, the most heinous and devastating act of destruction in all of creation. Baal is the most violent and impulsive of the 3 primevals, recklessly indulging in murder and abject annihilation wherever he can. Diablo, the Lord of Terror and the youngest of the primevals, considered by some to be the most dangerous of the primevals. Due to his governance of and mastery over terror, Diablo is incapable of feeling the effects of fear. Diablo himself is the one that discovered Sanctuary, the realm of humanity, and told his brothers about it, keeping this a secret from the 4 lesser evils. When the lesser evils eventually found out, they rebelled against the Primes and banished them into Sanctuary in an event known as the Dark Exile, setting the stage for the Archangel Tyrael's force of human mages to capture the 3 Primes and contain them within Soulstones. Diablo later escaped his prison and freed his brothers from theirs in an attempt to unite their essences within himself and become the Prime Evil. While he was ultimately successful, Diablo was eventually defeated and contained within the Black Soulstone along with his brothers before it too was destroyed, and their essences were released back into the black abyss of the burning hells. Duriel, the Lord of Pain, master of torture and physical torment. It's rumored that Duriel takes so much pleasure in pain that if left isolated with no others to inflict pain on, he would inflict pain on himself in order to sate his appetite. Although his domain is over actual physical pain itself and the screams that come as a result of it, Duriel finds the anticipation of pain to sometimes be more pleasurable than the pain itself. Andariel, the Maiden of Anguish, former ally of Diablo before the Dark Exile, and later his ally again. Andariel takes pleasure in agony of a more spiritual and emotional kind. She twists and manipulates, whispering into mortal minds and watching as they tear themselves apart from their inner agony. She's said to appear to be in a state of constant ecstasy, reveling in the emotional pain and suffering of others. Azmodan, the Lord of Sin. The most ambitious and charismatic of the great evils, Azmodan takes pleasure in seducing and tempting those around him into situations that break them. He is the embodiment of pride, greed, and gluttony, taking pleasure in vices of all forms, and has plotted to become the sole ruler of the burning hells for most of his existence. Belial, the Lord of Lies. Mentored by Mephisto, Belial also prefers to work from the shadows and twist intricate webs of lies and deceit in order to shift the perception of reality in his victims to the point that it becomes their reality. It's said that Belial was the one that truly kicked off the rebellion against the Primes, manipulating Azmodan into taking up arms against them and leading to the Dark Exile. In stark contrast to the 5 virtues of the high heavens, each of these 7 domains of evil I would absolutely consider to be entirely representative of evil when you consider them in excess. Things like destruction can sometimes be necessary, but not to the point of unrestrained violence. I find it incredibly ironic that the virtues celebrated by the burning hells are more pure in nature relative to the essence of their respective realm than the virtues celebrated by the high heavens. And all of this brings us here. Sanctuary, the mortal realm and home of humanity. As I said earlier, Sanctuary is not a natural part of creation. It didn't exist at the dawn of time, and it wasn't created until long after the shattering of Anu and Tathamet that led to the creation of the high heavens, the burning hells, and Pandemonium. Sanctuary is in fact an abomination born of angels and demons. In one fateful battle of the eternal conflict, Lilith, the daughter of Mephisto, managed to capture an angel serving under the Archangel Tyrael and brought him to her lair to torture him. This angel's name was Inarius. He told Lilith of his desire to escape the eternal conflict, that eons of war had taken its toll on his spirit, and that he was tired of it. Lilith similarly tired of the eternal conflict, but for different reasons altogether. She felt that an end was in sight, but that as long as her father and his brothers led the legions of the burning hells against the high heavens, that the conflict would remain eternal. Lilith saw in Inarius someone that she could use to achieve her ends. She manipulated him, and he fell in love with her. Lilith then convinced Inarius that in order for them to be together, they needed to steal the World Stone and create a new world where they could hide the stone and run from the eternal conflict. Inarius agreed, and together the two recruited like-minded angels and demons to support them in this, and these rogue angels and demons were eventually successful. Lilith and Inarius used the World Stone to create Sanctuary, a place of peace and infinite possibility away from the eternal conflict. And from their unholy union, there came children. Humanity was born to rogue angels and demons that stole the World Stone and committed the highest level of treason ever witnessed on either side of the war. Lilith's manipulations eventually led to her systematically killing each of the angels and demons that followed her and Inarius to Sanctuary for fear of them committing genocide against humanity, who were discovered to have been harboring incredible power that transcended both angel and demon. In the conflict that followed, Inarius banished Lilith into the void and ruled Sanctuary with an iron fist. One of the three prime evils, Diablo, eventually discovered Sanctuary and with his brothers launched a scheme to infiltrate the world of humanity and use their power to tip the scales of the eternal conflict. This led to a cataclysmic war on Sanctuary that eventually resulted in the High Heavens learning of Sanctuary's existence as well. In the aftermath that followed, the Angiris Council passed a fateful vote to allow humanity to exist rather than annihilating them, and came to an agreement with the Prime Evils that the Burning Hells would not interfere with Sanctuary in exchange for custody of the rogue angel Inarius. The World Stone was altered so that humanity could no longer develop the latent power inherent to them as a result of their combined parentage, and their memories were wiped of all events prior to this. Since then, humanity has been allowed to develop on Sanctuary as the eternal conflict rages throughout the rest of creation. Both the High Heavens and the Burning Hells have repeatedly violated the terms of their respective agreements, with one such violation being the Archangel Tyrael founding an order of mages called the Herodrim, whose purpose is to protect Sanctuary from the interference of the Burning Hells, which had become and continues to stay rampant. And so the eternal conflict continues on in Sanctuary as well, albeit on a much smaller scale than the battles that angels and demons wage against each other on the battlefields of eternity, but the fact remains that humanity has been drawn into the eternal conflict. So, where does that leave us? Do we take a side? Do we stand with the High Heavens in the name of order and light? Do we fight against the oppression and evil of the Burning Hells, even if it means that fight may cost us our very existence? Do we submit to the Burning Hells and the eternal inevitability of chaos in the interest of saving ourselves? Is survival at any cost preferable to annihilation? Who are the good guys? When talking about good guys and bad guys, morality has to be taken into consideration. And in the Diablo universe, morality is a strictly human concept due to our heritage. We are the product of both angel and demon. We understand what it means to be good in a way that demons never will, and we understand what it means to be evil in a way that angels never will. Because of the understanding that we are capable of, we have a choice that angels and demons simply do not, because we truly know good and evil in a far deeper and more meaningful way than either side ever will. When you spend an entire lifetime in sunshine, you learn to appreciate rain in ways that people that spend their lives living in rain just don't. You understand its value, and you can feel its importance. You celebrate it, even though it may inconvenience you in some ways. The same can be said for both darkness and light. When Anu expelled the evil from itself to create Tathamet, it rendered itself only capable of understanding and perceiving light, where Tathamet was only capable of understanding and perceiving darkness. There is only one other being in the eternal conflict outside of humanity that is capable of perceiving both darkness and light, and that being is Tyrael. Once again, Tyrael was born as the aspect of justice. He is the closest energetic resemblance to the concept of justice itself. However, as I pointed out earlier, in an attempt to administer a morally ambiguous concept like justice, you have to be able to identify what is right and what is wrong. This requires an understanding of both. So, by extension, Tyrael is the only angel that is capable of seeing the rain for what it is actually worth. He understands terror, destruction, and hatred better than the primevals do, because he understands the absence of those things and can feel it even more when they're present. But even then, is he truly capable of understanding darkness? He, like every other angel, was born from the Crystal Arch, the last remnant of Anu after it purged evil from itself. Any attempt to understand darkness may still be tinged by the limitation imposed on him by his heritage, and he may know that himself, which definitely helps explain his love and support of humanity. Which brings us to the big question: who are the good guys? Let's start with who's demonstrably not the good guy. It isn't Lilith, whose actions were entirely self-serving as she carved a path of death and blood through her children and lied to them in the same way that she lied to Inarius. And on that note, it isn't Inarius either, who also used humanity to achieve his own personal end. He may not have lied to us to the same extent that Lilith did, but he still lied, looked down on us, and ultimately threw us away in his bid to return to the high heavens. I strongly believe that the ends do not justify the means. In fact, I'd go so far as to say that I believe that the means are more important than the end. What we do dictates who we are, but in the end, who we are is more important than what we've done. If you murder innocents on the path to saving the world, then yes, you've saved the world, but you're a murderer, and more than likely no better than whatever you think you saved the world from. And somebody may be coming to save the world from you someday. With that said, neither the Angiris Council and the angels of the high heavens, nor the great evils and the demons of the burning hells are even capable of ever being the good guy. Both sides only understand their side and have shown us that they will each do whatever it takes to win their fight, to serve themselves. In this fight, the fight for the survival of Sanctuary and humanity itself, there are no good guys. We are entirely alone in this universe, which is both terrifying and empowering. I personally could never put my trust in a demon or an angel, no matter how charismatic, no matter how what they say may align with what I feel. Even Tyrael, who has only ever taken action in defense of humanity, is still part of the problem. Although in a roleplay setting, I may hate necromancy in all its forms and seek to root it out across Sanctuary, the priests of Rathma are absolutely onto something. I believe that the overall message in Diablo is that balance is the true path to goodness. You can't have light without darkness, and you can't have darkness without light. It is important to acknowledge both sides of our being because both are valid pieces of who we are. Good guys aren't good guys because they're wearing golden armor and have halos around their heads, just like bad guys aren't bad guys because they're red and have horns. Good guys do good things in spite of the darkness, but that means they have to be able to recognize and acknowledge the darkness. And the eternal conflict is just that, eternal, because of the fact that neither side is even capable of doing that. In every video in this series, I've said this in one way or another. I said it about the Skyrim Civil War between the Imperials and the Stormcloaks. I said it about the socio-political climate of Dragon Age between Templars and Mages. And I'll say it again about the eternal conflict of Diablo. If your side is the side that uses "I'm right only because the other side is wrong" as its primary motivator, you're probably not the good guy. The eternal conflict and Diablo as a whole is again what I'd consider to be a masterclass in storytelling. Maybe not as much from the character side of things, but absolutely from the conflict side of things. What could easily have just been a massively stereotypical story of good guy angels versus bad guy demons is instead this beautifully nuanced cautionary tale about extremism, about how finding balance in all things is the true path to goodness and peace. The eternal conflict tells us that honoring your light is just as important as honoring your darkness, and Diablo is a story about how only those capable of doing that about facing their inner demons while still committing to doing good things will ultimately win the eternal conflict. Thank you so much for checking out this video and the channel, and please let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. I live for discussions about this shit, so please drop me a line and let me know who you think the good guys are here. I don't claim to be a lore master by any means, so if I'm missing something here, please feel free to let me know as well. And of course, if you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing and dropping a like. At the end of the day, I just appreciate your time. And even if you hated the video and disagreed with everything that I said, I really just hope the video was able to entertain you in some way and made you want to go play Diablo a little bit. If you'd like to support the channel beyond liking and subscribing, please consider becoming a member for $1 a month. And one last time, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I hope you have an awesome day, and I'll catch you in the next one. Later. Former ally of Diablo before the Dark Exile, and something. I knew there was a spot that I forgot.